fishing, island hopping, beach days, fellowship at church, Sunday cricket sessions, putting a 6 love on your friends, kissing your granny, jumping off the iron shore. But until them days come again, let's find different ways to embrace who we are at home. Make your own kitchen scraping band. Listen to your grandfather's sea stories. Pass on traditional recipes. Play marbles and gigs. Tell duppy stories. Pray for family and friends. Stay connected. Stay K-Mankind. Share your ideas to inspire others. Use hashtag #StayingHomeIsKmankind. For the latest accurate information, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
I'm Mona Lisa Mead, and much like you, I'm finding it hard to navigate this new normal by wearing a mask and keeping it clean. We know that COVID-19 can survive on certain surfaces for a long while, so before you put your mask on, please do not contaminate it by placing it on an unclean surface. And when you return home from being out in a public space, just wash your mask like you would any load of laundry. By using hot water, you can help destroy any traces of the virus before you use it again. And remember, sharing a mask means you may be sharing the virus. The most important thing to keep in mind is that masks only work in combination with measures we already have in place, like social distancing and proper hand washing hygiene. By practicing all of these measures together, we can protect our community. For more tips and advice, visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Hi, I'm Jade Parker. We understand that our government's new requirements to wear a homemade mask out into public spaces will be an adjustment for most of us. It's not something that we do every day. A homemade mask can help to prevent the spread of COVID-19 if worn correctly. Here are some tips to help make it easier. Masks should fit snugly but comfortably against the side of your face and be secured with ties or ear loops. You should be able to breathe through your mask, although you may find it a little hot because of your own warm breath. Keep the mask secured over your nose and mouth. Your nose should be fully covered. If it isn't, then your mask will not protect you. Avoid touching the front of the mask because this is where any contagious droplets may have landed. Instead, when taking the mask off and on or adjusting it, only touch the elasticated strings or the string around the top of your head. When removing the mask, put it on a clean surface that you will later disinfect. As an example, don't put the used mask on your kitchen counter while you wash and clean your groceries. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus. Adjusting to this new norm can be difficult, where social distancing has become key, especially in our community, where getting together is how we show love for friends and family. The virus uses us to transport it around our community. Imagine you are asymptomatic and didn't know. Imagine you gave the virus to your friend who lives with their elderly grandmother. Imagine your friend had it and wasn't aware. What if they infected your brother or sister who has an underlying health condition? This is how the virus spreads. But we can stop the spread by continuing to social distance, limiting public gatherings, and not visiting other households. We can save lives. Remember, social distancing is K-Mankind. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
During these challenging times, it can be easy to lose sight of all that we have to be grateful for. As the world grapples with the effects of COVID-19, at the forefront of the fight are the many frontline workers diligently ensuring the continuity of our islands. From the police service, members of the National Emergency Operations Center, healthcare workers, the DEH, grocery and pharmacy attendants, and so many more. Along with the daily conch call at 6:59 p.m., Radio Cayman invites the community to call in to talk today, every Friday, for Frontline Fridays. Share your stories and experiences and let us as a community start the gratitude trend to the many people putting their lives on the front line. Whether you have a family member on the front line and wish to give them a shout out, or if you have a personal experience of Cayman kindness, we want to hear from you. Frontline Fridays, every Friday on Talk Today.
be no on a miss. Schoolyard football, fishing, island hopping, beach days, fellowship at church, Sunday cricket sessions, putting a 6 love on your friends, kissing your granny, jumping off the iron shore. But until them days come again, let's find different ways to embrace who we are at home. Make your own kitchen scraping band. Listen to your grandfather's sea stories. Pass on traditional recipes. Play marbles and gigs. Tell duppy stories. Pray for family and friends. Stay connected. Stay Caymankind. Share your ideas to inspire others. Use hashtag #StayInHome For the latest accurate information, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
I'm Mona Lisa Mead, and much like you, I'm finding it hard to navigate this new normal by wearing a mask and keeping it clean. We know that COVID-19 can survive on certain surfaces for a long while, so before you put your mask on, please do not contaminate it by placing it on an unclean surface. And when you return home from being out in a public space, just wash your mask like you would any load of laundry. By using hot water, you can help destroy any traces of the virus before you use it again. And remember, sharing a mask means you may be sharing the virus. The most important thing to keep in mind is that masks only work in combination with measures we already have in place, like social distancing and proper hand washing hygiene. By practicing all of these measures together, we can protect our community. For more tips and advice, visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Hi, I'm Jade Parker. We understand that our government's new requirements to wear a homemade mask out into public spaces will be an adjustment for most of us. It's not something that we do every day. A homemade mask can help to prevent the spread of COVID-19 if worn correctly. Here are some tips to help make it easier. Masks should fit snugly but comfortably against the side of your face and be secured with ties or ear loops. You should be able to breathe through your mask, although you may find it a little hot because of your own warm breath. Keep the mask secured over your nose and mouth. Your nose should be fully covered. If it isn't, then your mask will not protect you. Avoid touching the front of the mask because this is where any contagious droplets may have landed. Instead, when taking the mask off and on or adjusting it, only touch the elasticated strings or the string around the top of your head. When removing the mask, put it on a clean surface that you will later disinfect. As an example, don't put the used mask on your kitchen counter while you wash and clean your groceries. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus. Adjusting to this new norm can be difficult, where social distancing has become key, especially in our community, where getting together is how we show love for friends and family. The virus uses us to transport it around our community. Imagine you are asymptomatic and didn't know. Imagine you gave the virus to your friend who lives with their elderly grandmother. Imagine your friend had it and wasn't aware. What if they infected your brother or sister who has an underlying health condition? This is how the virus spreads. But we can stop the spread by continuing to social distance, limiting public gatherings, and not visiting other households. We can save lives. Remember, social distancing is Caymankind. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
During these challenging times, it can be easy to lose sight of all that we have to be grateful for. As the world grapples with the effects of COVID-19, At the forefront of the fight are the many frontline workers diligently ensuring the continuity of our islands. From the police service, members of the National Emergency Operations Center, healthcare workers, the DEH, grocery and pharmacy attendants, and so many more. Along with the daily Conch call at 6:59 p.m., Radio Cayman invites the community to call in to talk today, every Friday, for Frontline Fridays. Share your stories and experiences and let us as a community start the gratitude trend to the many people putting their lives on the front line. Whether you have a family member on the front line and wish to give them a shout out, or if you have a personal experience of Cayman kindness, we want to hear from you. Frontline Fridays, every Friday on Talk Today.
We know on a miss. Schoolyard football. Fishing. Island hopping. Beach days. Fellowship at church. Sunday cricket sessions. Putting a 6 love on your friends. Kissing your granny. Jumping off the iron shore. But until them days come again, let's find different ways to embrace who we are at home. Make your own kitchen scraping band. Listen to your grandfather's sea stories. Pass on traditional recipes. Play marbles and gigs. Tell duppy stories. Pray for family and friends. Stay connected. Stay humankind. Share your ideas to inspire others. Use hashtag #StayInHome For the latest accurate information, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
I'm Mona Lisa Mead, and much like you, I'm finding it hard to navigate this new normal by wearing a mask and keeping it clean. We know that COVID-19 can survive on certain surfaces for a long while. So before you put your mask on, please do not contaminate it by placing it on an unclean surface. And when you return home from being out in a public space, just wash your mask like you would any load of laundry. By using hot water, you can help destroy any traces of the virus before you use it again. And remember, sharing a mask means you may be sharing the virus. The most important thing to keep in mind is that masks only work in combination with measures we already have in place, like social distancing and proper hand washing hygiene. By practicing all of these measures together, we can protect our community. For more tips and advice, visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Hi, I'm Jade Parker. We understand that our government's new requirements to wear a homemade mask out into public spaces will be an adjustment for most of us. It's not something that we do every day. A homemade mask can help to prevent the spread of COVID-19 if worn correctly. Here are some tips to help make it easier. Masks should fit snugly but comfortably against the side of your face and be secured with ties or ear loops. You should be able to breathe through your mask, although you may find it a little hot because of your own warm breath. Keep the mask secured over your nose and mouth. Your nose should be fully covered. If it isn't, then your mask will not protect you. Avoid touching the front of the mask because this is where any contagious droplets may have landed. Instead, when taking the mask off and on or adjusting it, only touch the elasticated strings or the string around the top of your head. When removing the mask, put it on a clean surface that you will later disinfect. As an example, don't put the used mask on your kitchen counter while you wash and clean your groceries. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus. Adjusting to this new norm can be difficult, where social distancing has become key, especially in our community, where getting together is how we show love for friends and family. The virus uses us to transport it around our community. Imagine you are asymptomatic and didn't know. Imagine you gave the virus to your friend who lives with their elderly grandmother. Imagine your friend had it and wasn't aware. What if they infected your brother or sister who has an underlying health condition? This is how the virus spreads. But we can stop the spread by continuing to social distance, limiting public gatherings, and not visiting other households. We can save lives. Remember, social distancing is humankind. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
During these challenging times, it can be easy to lose sight of all that we have to be grateful for. As the world grapples with the effects of COVID-19, At the forefront of the fight are the many frontline workers diligently ensuring the continuity of our islands. From the police service, members of the National Emergency Operations Center, healthcare workers, the DEH, grocery and pharmacy attendants, and so many more. Along with the daily Conch call at 6:59 p.m., Radio Cayman invites the community to call in to talk today, every Friday, for Frontline Fridays. Share your stories and experiences and let us as a community start the gratitude trend to the many people putting their lives on the front line. Whether you have a family member on the front line and wish to give them a shout out, or if you have a personal experience of Cayman kindness, we want to hear from you. Frontline Fridays, every Friday on Talk Today.
be no on a miss. Schoolyard football, fishing, island hopping, beach days, fellowship at church, Sunday cricket sessions, putting a 6 love on your friends, kissing your granny, jumping off the iron shore. But until them days come again, let's find different ways to embrace who we are at home. Make your own kitchen scraping band. Listen to your grandfather's sea stories. Pass on traditional recipes. Play marbles and gigs. Tell duppy stories. Pray for family and friends. Stay connected. Stay Caymankind. Share your ideas to inspire others. Use hashtag #StayingHomeIsCaymankind. For the latest accurate information, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
I'm Mona Lisa Mead, and much like you, I'm finding it hard to navigate this new normal by wearing a mask and keeping it clean. We know that COVID-19 can survive on certain surfaces for a long while, so before you put your mask on, please do not contaminate it by placing it on an unclean surface. And when you return home from being out in a public space, just wash your mask like you would any load of laundry. By using hot water, you can help destroy any traces of the virus before you use it again. And remember, sharing a mask means you may be sharing the virus. The most important thing to keep in mind is that masks only work in combination with measures we already have in place, like social distancing and proper hand washing hygiene. By practicing all of these measures together, we can protect our community. For more tips and advice, visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Hi, I'm Jade Parker. We understand that our government's new requirements to wear a homemade mask out into public spaces will be an adjustment for most of us. It's not something that we do every day. A homemade mask can help to prevent the spread of COVID-19 if worn correctly. Here are some tips to help make it easier. Masks should fit snugly but comfortably against the side of your face and be secured with ties or ear loops. You should be able to breathe through your mask, although you may find it a little hot because of your own warm breath. Keep the mask secured over your nose and mouth. Your nose should be fully covered. If it isn't, then your mask will not protect you. Avoid touching the front of the mask because this is where any contagious droplets may have landed. Instead, when taking the mask off and on or adjusting it, only touch the elasticated strings or the string around the top of your head. When removing the mask, put it on a clean surface that you will later disinfect. As an example, don't put the used mask on your kitchen counter while you wash and clean your groceries. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus. Adjusting to this new norm can be difficult, where social distancing has become key, especially in our community, where getting together is how we show love for friends and family. The virus uses us to transport it around our community. Imagine you are asymptomatic and didn't know. Imagine you gave the virus to your friend who lives with their elderly grandmother. Imagine your friend had it and wasn't aware. What if they infected your brother or sister who has an underlying health condition? This is how the virus spreads. But we can stop the spread by continuing to social distance, limiting public gatherings, and not visiting other households. We can save lives. Remember, social distancing is Caymankind. For more tips and advice, please visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
During these challenging times, it can be easy to lose sight of all that we have to be grateful for. As the world grapples with the effects of COVID-19, At the forefront of the fight are the many frontline workers diligently ensuring the continuity of our islands. From the police service, members of the National Emergency Operations Center, healthcare workers, the DEH, grocery and pharmacy attendants, and so many more. Along with the daily conch call at 6:59 p.m., Radio Cayman invites the community to call in to talk today, every Friday, for Frontline Fridays. Share your stories and experiences and let us as a community start the gratitude trend to the many people putting their lives on the front line. Whether you have a family member on the front line and wish to give them a shout out, or if you have a personal experience of Cayman kindness, we want to hear from you. Frontline Fridays, every Friday on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's press briefing on the coronavirus. I'm Donna Bush. Glad you could join us via the channel as well as via Radio Cayman. We go first to Reverend Rohan Forrester for today's prayer.
Almighty God, creator and ruler of the universe, we pause at the start of this press conference to acknowledge you as the one who is worthy of our praise and thanksgiving. We praise and thank you for the journey you have seen us through from the month of March to this present day to suppress the COVID-19 virus in the Cayman Islands, a journey that would not have been made possible without your grace and your mercy. We pray for your continued guidance over the lives of those whose livelihood has been affected by the measures taken by the government, whose job security is threatened by the loss of production hours and economic inactivity. We pray for frontline workers, doctors, nurses, and all who provide medical care, that you give insight in their caring and protect their health and well-being. We pray for wisdom for the scientific community, seeking ways to control the spread of this virus by the creation of a vaccine. We pray for the governor and the premier, members of the cabinet, and other members of the Legislative Assembly, and the RCIPS, and all other public officials who have been entrusted with the task of making hard decisions about quarantine and resumption of economic activity and overall normalcy in the Cayman Islands. As we dare Almighty God to believe, to trust, and to pray to you, we recognize Christ's presence with us as we go through this pandemic. Bless this press conference and those who will participate, and may our hearts continue to lift up the praises to you that you deserve as you journey with us. In and through Christ we pray. Amen.
And thank you, Reverend Forrester. We now welcome our panelists, His Excellency the Governor, the Honourable Premier and the Honourable Minister of Health. Also joining us in the studio is the Chief Medical Officer, the Director of HMCI, as well as our sign language interpreter. Joining us via Zoom are members of the media and the Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Samuel Williams Rodriguez. We go first to Dr. Lee.
Good afternoon. I thought I would give you a little description of what an R value was in just a few moments. But first of all, the figures that I know that everybody is anticipating. There are 329 results in total to give today, of which one is positive, and that is a new community-acquired case. 24 of those results were given by the Doctors' Hospital. That brings our total positives to 86. The number of symptomatic is at 8, the number of asymptomatic at 21. The number of admitted is unchanged at 2, and the number of recovered at 54. There are 98 persons in the government isolation facility and a further 100 in community isolation. Flu clinic and flu hotline calls remain quiet, with 12 patients seen in the flu clinic in the previous 24 hours and 26 flu hotline calls. So I've received a number of queries about the R value, and it is an exceedingly technical issue that it's been difficult for me to wrap my head around, so I hope I'll be able to describe it in a way that at least some of you might be able to follow. The R0 value is actually a basic reproductive number that assumes a wholly susceptible population at the beginning. So it means that at the time there would be no suppression measures put in place whatsoever, and it also assumes that there are no individuals who are either infected or immunized. So you only get an R0 value at the beginning of an outbreak, and it's a model, it's an estimate. What you'll hear of now, most countries quoting, is actually an R value, which is a time-dependent reproductive number. So every day when you calculate it, you will be able to find a different R number. The reason that I've previously mentioned, and I'll say again, is that Cayman has not bothered to produce this or to calculate it is not due to a lack of interest. It's actually because many of the tools that enable you to calculate it require something like a minimum of 60 cases per day, or a population of between 3 to 5 million, in order to get any sensible values out of any of the estimates that are available. So it really doesn't make sense for us to calculate it in Cayman. The R value also relates to whole populations, and as you're aware, and you will be aware, we've had a number of different clusters of cases in Cayman, and each of those clusters will have its own reproductive number, which is different to the R value of the whole community. And actually what most people want is to know the R value for the whole community. So I'm saying that these clusters throw off the calculation and immediately lets you understand how, when you look at a small population where there's not enough infection going on, it becomes a fairly meaningless figure. Lastly, to say is there are a lot of assumptions that go into calculating the R value, and these assumptions are often generated from different countries, and different countries will have different experiences of this disease, the COVID-19. It's very likely that Cayman will have its own experience of it, whether it's due to the particular genotype of the virus that's affecting different people here, whether it's due to the social circumstances, how dense we live, other social circumstances like the relative affluence that Cayman enjoys, or other issues like, as we understand, the weather and so on, suppressing the disease. But these all influence the assumptions that go into calculating the R value, which mean that its meaningfulness decreases as you assume more and more things. I have actually calculated the R value over time for the last 60 days or so, and as you might have guessed, the results that come out produce a very low number, but it's not something that I feel is worth quoting at all because of all of the aforesaid things that I've mentioned. You'll be aware that we are working through the testing programs. We have a lot of people in construction that are lined up to be tested. We are working through the supermarkets and have worked through a lot of the frontline workers. I'm hoping to give you more information. I have some information here in front of me about some of the testing groups, but we are trying to get that in a better format in order that I can provide it for you more fully and more completely as the days go on. Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lee. We're going to go straight to the media, beginning with Reshma from the Cayman Compass. Reshma?
Thank you, Donna. Good afternoon, Dr. Lee. Welcome back.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
My first question, can you give us the age ranges for the positive cases that we have? We haven't got that in a little while.
I don't think it's changed much, Reshma. I saw it earlier on today, but I haven't got it written down in front of me. It's something like 14 to 85, I think. What we're planning to do is a more enhanced dashboard, and that should be coming online fairly soon. So a lot of the figures that I repeat every day, such as the number that have recovered, the number of symptomatic and asymptomatic, and including the age range, will be given on the more enhanced dashboard. That we're hoping to update that every day. At least certain of the key items will be updated every day alongside the information that we provide at the press conference. But certainly it should be available for all of the public to be able to see in a more visual format.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Now, just as for clarity, the one case that you reported today, we saw Cost You Less announce that one of their employees had tested positive. Is this the same case, or is this something different?
As you know, I wouldn't report about individual instances or give the details. I've said previously that we wouldn't be giving out details of individual institutions or organizations, but there is a striking alignment with the two announcements.
Okay, fair enough. Now, last week you made a call for essential workers to come forward, frontline workers to come forward. How has that call been answered? Are you satisfied with the number of tests that are running?
Yeah, it's produced. It's been very effective, and I know some of the people who felt a little bit resistant had also been encouraged by their colleagues, and that's been a you know, as that always is. If your colleagues are encouraging you, that's I think it's done the job.
Okay, great. My final question for you, given the position that we are in with all the hundreds of negative cases that we're getting daily, is it time for us to relax a little? And for those who would have tested negative, can they relax now that they've been cleared from COVID?
I think the real concern of mine is the fact that we're still getting these cases pop up, and we don't really understand where they're coming from. Our borders have been closed. The R value, just to explain a bit more, if you have an R value of 1 or less, then the one person that's infected is going to infect one person or less. And we believe that with an R value of less than 1, the disease will burn itself out. But with an R value of 2, then 2 people will infect 2 more people, and so on. So you get 2, 4, 8 people infected. With an R value of 3, you get 3, 9, 27. It's that multiplying factor that any one person can suddenly cause an outbreak, and as an outbreak that would result in admissions, intensive care admissions, and possibly deaths. That's what we've been trying so hard to move away from. And whilst we are still getting positives out there, we're concerned. And that's why we remain cautious about how we unlock things. I had an interesting meeting with the CARICOM chief medical officers on Monday. I know I wasn't meant to be working, but, you know, I sneaked a bit in. And there was one of the countries, a big country, was reporting that they had no cases. And yet their ability, not only their ability to test, but the numbers of people they're testing relative to their population size is small. And they had described that they had no cases in the last 2 weeks. Well, we would have had no cases in the last 2 weeks if we hadn't been doing our screening, because nobody has come through as a sick person. They've only come through as positive cases. Because we're doing this screening, we're able to ring-fence those people through the contact tracing and protect the rest of the public. And that's what we want to continue to do as time goes along. We have the ability to test, and we'll continue to do that to try to stop this disease from catching hold. Because everybody can see that it is still in Cayman. Every week we have more positives that we weren't expecting, that we were hoping weren't coming, but they keep coming. So it's definitely still here.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Dr. Lee.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Reshma. We go now to Wendy from CNS.
Thank you, Donna. Appreciate that. Hello, Dr. Lee.
Afternoon.
Just following on from that, do you have any concerns that the reason why we keep seeing these cases popping up in the community, given that the borders are closed and any new people arriving are in strict quarantine, that this is because those that are in self-isolation are simply not self-isolating?
I don't think so, actually, Wendy. I'm much more concerned about the fact that there is a hidden undercurrent of COVID that is still going through the community. I feel that's a more likely cause, but I don't. That's just a feeling, a sense. It's not. I don't have any facts to support it. I think the other issue is that, you know, doing us isolating the people as we do is we're being very effective in the numbers of people that we contact trace and then isolate. I feel in general, we've had a few people that have found it hard to comply, but actually, when we put a little harder pressure on them, some of them have either complied or voluntarily gone into the government isolation facility. So in general, I think I've mentioned before, we know when people are not complying, and we are able to take steps to make sure that they do, and to remedy that situation. I think it's far more likely that this, as I mentioned earlier, the disease is smouldering away in Cayman.
Okay, so you haven't had any issues. A few people have raised the question that people have been dodging the contact tracing because they don't want to be put in quarantine, because they have work and they want to keep their jobs in, because they don't feel sick, and that there has been some avoidance of being traced.
Yeah, that is always going to happen. That it will happen. I accept your point utterly. That is one of the reasons that we wanted to encourage people to come forward and encourage them to understand that it was not a punitive action, and to support them when they're in quarantine as much as we could, or in isolation as much as we could. But I accept your point.
I have just a couple of other little things. This one's probably quite minor, actually, but the world stats keep saying that we've got 3 critical people with COVID-19, and that's no longer true, is it?
No, it's not true.
That's just presumably
absolutely, it's not. I don't know where they get their stats from. If you can correct it, Wendy, that'd be great.
So that is wrong. Also, this is another issue that's come up. Is there any value to assisting you and your measurements of the spread in the community, to doing research into earlier transmission? There's a lot of people that believe that they probably had COVID late February, early March, long before we had our first positive confirmed patient 0. Is there any value in trying to find out whether we did have the virus so much earlier, and maybe that is where the continuous feed is, if you like, because it's asymptomatic people spreading to more asymptomatic people?
I think that, you know, we have to bear in mind the capacity of Cayman to respond to this sort of public health event. And there is a limited capacity. We have poured enormous resources into it, both in terms of financial and manpower resources, and done, I believe, incredibly well with what we have achieved to date. The sort of thing that you're talking about would be interesting from a scientific perspective, but all the time, the Ministry of Health needs to decide what is the information that is going to drive and change policy, and that is the information that we are trying to generate in order to assist the Cabinet and the government to make decisions for the good of the people. And currently, doing PCR testing tells us where we are today. I absolutely understand that it would be very interesting to know whether people had it, and I'm pretty sure they did. I agree that the WHO criteria for testing are too strict, would not pick up asymptomatic, or what we call PORSI. PORSI is a Latin Greek word for little, small number of symptoms, PORSI symptomatic people. Yes, it would be interesting, but it's not something that we are currently able to do. It is possible that in the future we can still go backwards, because doing testing of IgG will tell us probably what historically we had. And Public Health England have already mooted that they might be willing to help the overseas territories in such an investigation. But part of me does question how that would change the policy decisions we're making now.
Yeah, exactly. So it is something for those people that seem very interested in it. All of a sudden, it's something down the line, and it's not. It would have no policy value right now. I'm
interested too, but it wouldn't change. I don't feel so. No, I think the current testing of who actually has it and expanding that as much as we can to isolate the infected people and protect the public is the right way to be going for Cayman now.
Okay. Other than test numbers, that would be my final question, which is, Dr. Williams spoke about 400 to 450. We're still falling short of that. Is there any movement on those numbers getting increased?
That figure is broken down by hoping that the HSA will produce between 300 to 350 a day, and hoping Doctors Hospital will produce up to 100 a day. So that's where that figure comes from. I understand that Doctors Hospital has had a challenge in the laboratory for the last 24 hours, which I think will resolve itself. And that's why we only have, as I mentioned, 24 from Doctors Hospital today.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. I appreciate answering all those. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. We now go to Ralph from the Caymanian Times.
Good afternoon, Dr. Lee, and thank you for your presentation. Just have one question. And can employers make testing mandatory for all of their employees?
No. It's not. I don't think it's reasonable. Everybody's health is a personal issue. I think you can encourage. I guess I'd revise that and say a healthcare provider could do so and are doing so. But I think if you're I suspect your question was more around a general employer.
Yes.
I think it would be difficult to do so, because to actually force somebody to have a medical test would be considered assault under the law. You're also pulling me into employment law, which is really not my expertise. So that would be my feeling, but you'd need to speak to an employment lawyer, I think, to get a definitive answer about the law on that one. I'll revise somewhat.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Donna.
Okay, thank you very much, Ralph. We go now to April from Radio Cayman.
Hi, Dr. Lee.
Afternoon.
Basically, the two stores have said that they have had employees test positive for COVID-19, and we're starting to get a lot of questions about what the protocol is in instances like this, what the quarantine procedures are. They're saying, hey, if people coming into the country have to be, in isolation for 14 days and their families and contacts and those sorts of things, they just want an understanding of what the policy is regarding someplace like a store or any other business that has high traffic and a lot of people in close contact with each other. Could you touch on that a little bit for us?
I think it doesn't really change whether you're talking about a store or a frontline worker or a garage or anything else. Anywhere where there's mixing of people, you have to go back to the basics that we've been talking about all along, which is hand hygiene, respiratory etiquette, distancing from people, wearing masks when you're in public. These are all vital things. As far as the store, I mean, every different area will have different specific needs for that industry. So food suppliers, food handlers, construction, the supermarkets are all slightly different. There is a lot of guidance out there for each of the different industries, and the larger the organization, it's saying, should consider doing a risk analysis before restarting their businesses after COVID, or if they're still in business, to consider. And I know that the supermarkets have done, as I've seen the documents, and I know that other industries are doing exactly the same thing. So it's a question of doing a risk analysis for larger organizations, the smaller organizations, to remember the basics about hand hygiene being the most important of all of those things, because it's touching people. That's where things are likely to transfer from one to another, and secondary after that would be the distancing.
And you spent a bit of time talking about this, but I missed a very basic piece of information, which is really just what is that R value used for? Like, what would its value be to us?
It's about essentially it's about drive. It's again what we were talking about, driving policy. It's about considering, do we need to move more into a lockdown, or can we afford to unlock a bit if we feel that if the virus is not spreading, the R value is less than 1. Again, as I said, we can't calculate it for Cayman, but if it's less than 1, then you can afford to start opening and seeing what happens to the R value with your unlock, because it's something that changes with time and that you can reassess every day or every minute.
And finally, I just, from listening to you, get the sense that you are aware of how much we don't actually know about COVID-19. That there may be other things going on, but it sounds like we are just operating the best we can with the information we have. Is that a fair assessment of what we're doing?
I think it's a fair assessment of what the world is doing, yes. There are lots of things that we'll know with time, like the issue of exactly what happens in children, like the issue of how long can somebody be infectious, because we think it may only be 7 days, for example, but we're keeping people, because we don't know that answer, we're keeping people much more cautiously up to 14 or until they've got 2 negative tests. But there is some evidence to say that you're not actually shedding live virus. Virus cannot be cultured from you after 7 days. But we don't have enough hard evidence in order to say, okay, we have the confidence, after 7 days, you're good to go. The 7-day issue was slightly different in England. It wasn't, I don't believe it was based on that data. I believe it was based on different decisions. So I don't want you to confuse that 7-day issue with what they're doing in the UK. Because in the UK, they made that 7-day decision because people are, the rate of virus in their blood is dropping, and because they accepted that the virus is already widespread in the community. But we've seen that people can get really quite sick after the 7-day period, for example. There are lots of unknowns, I agree.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, April. Thank you, Dr. Lee. We're now going to go to our Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Donna. Hello, everyone. I just want to pick up on what Dr. Lee was saying and some of the discussions that we've been having with him over the course of the past few months. Also center on some of the things that were discussed today. And the decisions that the government takes in relation to this matter and has taken all along are driven and influenced very heavily by the public health considerations and by the high degree of ignorance that still exists generally about COVID-19. What we have done, and for which we have been criticized in some quarters, is we've erred on the side of caution all along. And thus, at this point, Cayman is not in the position of most countries in the world who are seeking to balance the challenges of saving lives and saving livelihoods as they try to unlock various aspects of their economy, and making decisions based on falling or rising death counts. And we don't ever want to get there either. So our considerations with respect to unlocking the economy are in many ways different than considerations that are the case in other places like the UK, even places like Germany. I won't even talk about the United States. We are still trying everything we can to eliminate the virus, not eradicate it. The two are not the same. And I think we are doing quite a good job. But the decisions about unlocking the economy have to be guided by the testing, by the results that we are getting. Thus, the thrust now to test frontline personnel. And frankly, the results are showing what I think most of us expected, is that there is still a significant amount of COVID virus out there. The fact that we haven't had a single person turn up at the hospital with COVID-19 symptoms in the last couple of weeks is a good sign in one way, but very worrying in another. It means that there are no very sick people out there, and that is a very good thing. But it also raises the big question is how many asymptomatic people are there out there that are capable of passing the virus on to others? And that's what this testing is designed to try to suss out, and to allow us to identify those persons to the extent they need treatment, treat them, isolate them, trace their contacts, and test them as well. And the more of that testing that we do, the better idea that we will have about the prevalence of the virus more broadly in the community, because these are frontline personnel that are being tested now. Now, we unlocked the first area of the economy last week, Monday. That put another 6,000 people, more or less, back into circulation. Those are principally delivery personnel, delivering services, delivering products. And so far, the testing is not showing any significant difference, no spikes. But it is still, today is Wednesday, so that is, 10 days. So we should start to see something if it's coming about. That is in cases where people are symptomatic, but a high percentage of people in this territory, this country, seem to be asymptomatic, so we have to bear all that in mind. I say that to lead into the next, the discussion about the next phase of the reopening, which we propose to begin next Tuesday, since Monday is a public holiday next week. And that area would involve aspects of construction and development, and the Home Depots and hardware and related stores and garages and so forth. Now we're talking about a significantly greater number of people. We're talking now not about 6,000, but somewhere between 8,000 and 9,000 new people, or they're not new people, but people coming back into the workforce, back into circulation. And we do need to do that in a staged way, because it is impossible for us to test a significant percentage of 9,000 people in a week or two. And so, particularly with respect to construction, we are still working very hard on a plan which I hope we will be able to announce on Friday as to how we reopen that sector. We have been, in the last week or so, engaged in discussions with developers, with the construction companies, with Dr. Lee, with public health, about how we go about that exercise. And some construction workers have been tested so far, but we're not where we need to be. The number is quite overwhelming from our standpoint. When I was told that there are over 1,900 entities with trade and business licenses to operate within the development and construction sector, I was completely bowled over. So we had to try to break it down into more manageable numbers. So we've looked, for instance, at the number of active permits that are out there with respect to projects. And then we've looked again at the number of projects which were actually under construction at the time that the shutdown, the lockdown was imposed, and we get down to an even smaller number, 150 odd. So we're working on that basis in the hope that beginning next week, a number of projects, those where the developers and contractors are ready to go, would be able to start. And over the course of the next couple of weeks, we would be able to roll out or to reopen just about every aspect of that industry, that part of the economy, where there are actually active permits. By that point, we should have significant numbers of test results, which will help to inform the next step and the next way forward. As I said before, opening up that sector means necessarily that you must open up Home Depots and hardware stores, because it's impossible for that sector to work without that. And again, you're looking at another 300-400 people. And now you're also looking at customers being able to go into enclosed spaces. So again, the risks there are significantly higher, and that's why it's so important that we do as much of this testing as we possibly can. I can say that my caucus, my government, has been working over the course of yesterday, and it'll be the case again today and tomorrow, at how we, at the form that the new shelter-in-place regulations will take when they expire over the course of this weekend. And in addition to that as well, the issue of hard curfew, especially the hard curfew on Sunday, and to the extent to which those need to be modified or changed. Again, we are trying to do this in a careful way, while recognizing and acknowledging the pressures and stresses and frustrations that everybody in the country are facing as a result of these restrictions, but also bearing in mind that so far there is no country in the world that has successfully reopened and not had to back up and take stock again as the R number increases. That is, as there is a spike in infections and in deaths. We are striving really hard to avoid that happening. And the result of the testing over the course of these 2 weeks will heavily influence our view about the degree of or the prevalence of the virus in the broader community. By that point, we should be over 10,000 test results, which I think will give us a very good idea of where we are. There is, as Dr. Lee said, no question that COVID-19 is in the community. I think what we can say with confidence is that there is not a whole lot of it, but in a way that can lull us into a sense of a false sense of security. And if we are not careful, we could having made all of these sacrifices and having achieved this level of success, very quickly in 3 or 4 weeks, be thrown into complete and utter crisis, with our medical facilities overwhelmed by the sheer number of very sick people. One of the marvelous things we've been able to do so far is to, by and large, keep the virus away from the most vulnerable in this community. The older people who have underlying medical issues have largely been shielded from it. And I think in large part, that is why we have so far had only the one unfortunate death of patient 0. So we are looking, and I know people are interested in this, so I'm trying to remind myself, we are looking very carefully at the issue of fishing. We know what pressures there are about that, and also about access to the beach. I can say that we have certainly decided that the beaches should be reopened, but only for the purposes of exercise. That is in the next shelter-in-place regulations. Not today, because I know people will jump quick on this. Not right now. I'm giving you some insight into what we are discussing for the next iteration, when the shelter-in-place, the current shelter-in-place provisions expire at the weekend, but not generally, because there are still significant concerns expressed by Dr. Lee and shared by us about partying, for lack of a better word, or encouraging the sort of partying and socializing on the beach at this particular time, socializing anywhere, quite frankly, at this time. Perhaps if everything keeps going the way it is going, another 2 weeks, we might be in a position where we can relax that issue and say to people that the numbers of people who can get together would be allowed to increase without too much risk. But we are not there yet, and we won't be there by this weekend. But that is certainly one of the things that we are looking at lifting. The other thing that we are trying to work out how we do is to lift the hard curfew on Sunday. And so we need to have some discussions with the commissioner about that as well. But assuming that all goes well, we should see some significant relaxation in the current level of restrictions starting on Tuesday of next week, or as early as Sunday, with respect to the hard curfew of this week. I say that to tell people that there is real hope and promise that what we are doing is working, and that we will, in a few weeks, be able to get back to some level of normality in the way that we live and work and operate in Cayman, albeit with our borders closed and albeit with significant economic challenges ahead. I can also say that the government has spent quite a bit of time now working at and looking at the current economic, not just projections, but the current economic state and financial state of the government, and more broadly at what we can continue to do to stimulate and to support and to help businesses, particularly small businesses, to get through this next period. As I've said more than once, development and construction is a key, very, very key to what we are trying to do, to essentially operate on the basis of just one of our regular industries that require inward investment and inward flow of people and money. Development and construction, we think, can go a long way to help to plug that huge gap that there is. And it's going to be a gap not just in what people who live here, businesses who operate here make, but also, and many people will forget this, there are other concerns, the revenue that government derives. For without that revenue, government is not able to do the things it needs to do, despite the fact that we have put aside a considerable rainy day account, which we are dipping heavily into now. I think I'll leave that there. There'll be lots to report on Friday when we come back. But just to say that I apparently struck something of a nerve with my learned friends at the last press conference when I expressed my frustration at some of the hate mail, quite frankly, that I've been receiving from a number of people, particularly from some attorneys who tend to be a bit more threatening in their tone when they write you about the way the government has gone about and is going about managing this crisis. And a number of my friends have written to me being very supportive. Well, I got one or two more love letters from those that don't quite agree. But I thought that I should read an email which I received from the president of the Cayman Islands Legal Practitioners Association, since that is the representative body for attorneys in these islands and has more than 900 members. It is addressed to me and the Attorney General. Dear Honourable AG and Honourable Premier, I trust that you and your families are well in these challenging times. The Premier's remarks re attorneys in today's press briefing were noted by a number of attorneys. I want to assure you that the legal profession is supportive of the government's handling of this crisis to date. SILPA, the Cayman Islands Legal Practitioners Association, has been working in partnership with the ministry to support the jurisdiction through this difficult period. That work has included drafting proposed new legislation to support Cayman's economic recovery, drafting guidelines for reopening of the legal sector in due course, and engaging with the ministry on these and other important matters on a daily basis. As you know, individual attorneys will have their personal views. Those views may well differ from SILPA's and from the shared view of the majority of attorneys. As a representative body for the vast majority of attorneys, SILPA makes no criticism of the government's handling of the current crisis. We will continue to support Cayman's recovery in any way possible and will continue to work with the government to advance a shared goal of a broad and sustained economic recovery for these islands. If it would be helpful to speak on this at any point, please let me know. Regards, David Collins, President, SILPA. So I'm very happy that the views that have been expressed, the rather strident views, appear to be not shared by the majority of the legal profession, of which I have been a member for 32 years. I also have a wife and daughter who are lawyers as well, in case anyone thinks that I might have some bias against lawyers. I just want to make one point, though, with respect to an article that was published by the Cayman Islands, by the Caymanian Compass, attributed to Mr. James Austin Smith. Now, there's been a number of these bits of correspondence that I've received, and that article also seems to address that, which either infer or state directly concerns about breaches of people's civil rights under our Bill of Rights. Because the nature of what we're doing does infringe upon what one would normally expect are people's rights of movement and an ability to enjoy various amenities and so forth. But these are expressly carved out in our Bill of Rights in cases such as this, where there are concerns about public health generally and the spread of infectious, contagious diseases. I am entirely satisfied, as is the Attorney General and others who have looked at it, that all of the measures we have taken so far are reasonable and proportionate to the risks that we are seeking to address and the challenges that we are trying to deal with. What I found curious, though, is that among the many rights that are cited in much of this correspondence, little or no regard is given to what is considered by constitutional lawyers, human rights lawyers the world over to be the paramount right, and that is the right to life. Now, it seems to be inferred that the right to life is something that is limited to only healthy and young people. But the right to life is not in any way qualified. Whether a person is 102 years old, as Mr. Ethel Ebanks is, who I wished happy birthday a few weeks ago, or whether you are some young, buff attorney, 35 years old, who thinks that you are immortal, you have the same right to life. And the government has an obligation to defend that right of Miss Ethel to live to be as old as nature allows her, as it is to protect the right to life to the young, buff attorney. That, I think, is what has been missing from just about everything that has been written to me. All of the other rights seem to trump in the minds of those who correspond with me. That paramount, what is the paramount right, guaranteed under bills of rights all over the world the right to life. So I would just ask everyone to bear that in mind, that because she is old and infirm does not mean that her right to expect her life to be protected is any less than yours because you are young and strong and healthy. I do not profess to be a human rights lawyer, but I spent almost 9 years working on the current Bill of Rights in our Constitution with some of the best constitutional lawyers in the Commonwealth. And I think I have at least a basic understanding of what it says, what it means. And I have looked at bills of rights from almost every country in the world, certainly everyone in the Commonwealth. Ours is as good as just about any of them. So please believe me when I say that we are not doing anything, nor would I countenance the government to do anything which I believed was in breach of what our Constitution provides for, and in particular, our Bill of Rights and Responsibilities, which is part of the 2009 Constitution Order.
Thank you, Honourable Premier McLaughlin, Your Excellency.
Yes, thank you very much, Donna, and good afternoon, everybody. I think I would sort of describe where we are at the moment. All of us feel a real sense of cautious optimism about the position that we're in. And let me just pay tribute to the Premier and his team and his caucus and everyone around him for what I know is a huge amount of work going on behind the scenes to respond to this quite unprecedented crisis. We're optimistic because I think it is really significant that we've had nobody for over 2 weeks now with symptoms of COVID-19 reporting to our clinics, and our clinics remain very quiet. I do think that is really important. But we're cautious because, as John Lee rightly said, we do still have these cases of COVID-19 popping up from our screening. So I think that means we can, as the Premier has said, move to the next phase of our suppression strategy, moving to level 3 next week. But we have to do that in a careful and cautious manner, keeping the social distancing going, basic hygiene, and really just trying to avoid groups of people meeting, which is still a huge risk for us. But I think we can be confident and we can be optimistic and we can be hopeful that we are making extremely good progress. I want to just say a little bit about evacuation flights. A lot of work going on behind the scenes. First of all, I would like to reassure Indian and Filipino nationals that we're working very hard to arrange evacuation flights for them. We have been in touch with the British High Commission in New Delhi and the British Embassy in Manila, and we are making progress, and I do expect to be able to make an announcement about flights for those nationals very soon. We also have the 2 flights to Miami on Friday. I think there are a very small number of seats still left on one of those flights. We have the Dominican Republic flight on the 17th of May, and there are, again, a very small number of seats still available on that. And there is a Canada flight on the 22nd, which we've spoken about before. And one other point of detail, for the Miami flights, there will be about 80 people coming back in on one of those flights. I also want to just say a quick word, because I've been asked a number of times to give an update on the Defence Regiment. I think it is worth saying again that because of COVID-19, we had to pause work on the Defence Regiment. But I think it was Winston Churchill who said, never waste a crisis. And I think that in this crisis, we have actually got an opportunity to make faster progress with the Defence Regiment than we had hoped was possible. So the UK has agreed that 5 of our junior officers can go to Sandhurst for 2 months military training at the beginning of next month, of course, managing all the COVID-19 risks. But I do think that is an incredible opportunity. They would have gone to Bermuda for their training. We're also going to push ahead with recruitment of the Defence Regiment, so 50 part-time reservists, again managing the COVID-19 risks. But it's because we have the Security Assistance Team from the UK Ministry of Defence here with us that we're able to make that progress. And a reminder again that regiment is primarily focused on hurricane assistance. So I think it will be a really positive step if we can make progress in spite of everything else that is going on. I just want to say a quick word about the civil service and working from home. This has proved to be a real revelation in just how many people have been able to increase their productivity, enjoy a better work-life balance, and just work in a much more flexible way. I think it's very noteworthy that across the world, people are looking at working from home in a very different way. The head of the UK Foreign Office has now said that all UK Foreign Office jobs, the default mechanism should be working from home. And I think it gives us an opportunity to build back better. And certainly as we look at traffic flows in the islands, having a different way of civil servants getting to work with many more of them at home will certainly help us to handle that better in the future. And finally, I just want to make a shout out to Derek Byrne, our Police Commissioner, and his officers, plus CBC and the Special Constables, who continue to do an outstanding job for us on the front line after what is now many weeks of an extraordinary situation. But a particular shout out today to PC Marina Connolly, who has been working for RCIPS for 38 years. She is the longest serving female in our police service. And I want to congratulate Marina on really outstanding service over such a long time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Minister.
Yep. Thank you very much, Donna. Good afternoon, everyone. Grand Cayman, Little Cayman, Cayman Brac, and their Caymanian diaspora listening in. I think if people were in the room, I think the Premier deserves a lot of praise. And if they were in the room, I would say he deserves a clap. But for more than is seen, and in the way that he cares for this nation and his thoughtfulness, and I say that being in the trenches and behind the scenes, and I thank you so much, Premier. I know this job is not an easy job. No job that is worthy is easy. So I thank you for your contributions to this country. I hope it is well noted in later years. Yes, we are making good progress here in the Cayman Islands. Little Cayman is freed up, and Cayman Brac mostly, combing our way to Grand Cayman. But some are in such a rush, in such of a hurry to get back to normal way of life. They would go to any lengths to disrupt good progress, and I think we have made good progress. The old African proverb says, always being in a hurry does not prevent death. Neither does going slowly prevent living. A patient person never misses a thing. Yes, people want to fish, so do I. Want to enjoy the beach, so do I. And want to go back to work, well, I am. But should we do so without care and consideration? It's not like the COVID-19 is totally gone. I gather some don't care about that, but we have a lot that do care about it. And this is the Cayman Islands, the last I checked. Maybe those who don't have elderly parents or young children, or their industry is still going strong and well, or they're as fit as a fiddle and feel invincible until that virus grabs you. It's not prejudice, I can tell you that. And I believe respect is due, And we have to trust the duly elected leaders of this country and show appreciation for what we have done and how responsible we were and continue to be. Life has to be supreme and of paramount importance. And we don't need anyone trying to create unrest in this country. And when you vehemently show public dissent to something that is working and has been proven. So our caucus is working very hard and worked till almost 10 p.m. last night, and for hours upon hours. And we're trying to ensure that we consider most effects of our action. Please be responsible with the latitude that you heard Premier speaking about earlier and the stuff that we're working on for next week and trying to free up a little bit more. Freedom does have its responsibility. Today's scripture is from Colossians 3:12-14. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you have a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. Shout out today to Papa John's Pizza for all the meals delivered to the HSA. Thank you so much. Also, happy birthday to Miss Eloise Seymour. May God give you strength to see many, many more. And Eloise. Today, as mentioned last week, the World Health Organization has designated 2020 as the year of the nurse and the midwife. And on behalf of my cabinet colleagues and the people of the Cayman Islands, I again extend our collective gratitude to all those who serve these islands in this noble profession. Today we recognize 208 nurses at the Health Services Authority and another 300 in the private sector. This year has given us even more reasons to celebrate the nursing profession as they work on the front lines during this pandemic. Yesterday, May 12th, marked International Nurses Day, celebrating the 200th anniversary of Florence Nightingale's birthday, a woman who founded the modern field of nursing. Some of our own Caymanian nurses have made such a great impact on our islands. I can think of a few who have been honored by the Queen for their contributions to the medical field here. It should be noted that this is the first time the World Health Organization has designated a year for a single professional group, signifying their essential role in the health and well-being of our population and the inextricable link between health, national development, and economic sustainability. I have quoted the famous Roman poet Virgil before, but it seems fitting to say it again, as truly this year we have been reminded more than ever the greatest wealth is health. This country and our people owe a huge debt of gratitude to all the men and women who have served in various capacities throughout every generation, from the early pioneers to the many dedicated and diverse professionals who now make up the profession and provide care in a variety of settings in the Cayman Islands, with one shared objective: to provide the best health care to every single person on these islands. All of us have been touched by the comfort and reassurance that nurses provide, as they have been with us from birth and will be throughout our lives, caring for health. Nursing is a profession that never sleeps, that work around the clock, 24 hours a day, 365 days per year. During this COVID-19 crisis, they are working long shifts, wearing hot, heavy PPEs, and in some cases, isolating themselves from home, and an added sacrifice to keep their loved ones safe. They are making sacrifices every day by showing up at work and putting themselves on the front line. It is truly a selfless and honorable profession, and those who are called to it are the heroes amongst us. The field of nursing is one in great need around the globe, and especially here at home. I'm pleased the nursing program at the University College of the Cayman Islands to provide career opportunity for Caymanians pursuing a nursing career. This program is essential to ensure the sustainability of our healthcare system with the next generation of our young Caymanian nurses to care for our country. I encourage everyone in our community to find an opportunity and in your own unique way to show appreciation to these dedicated nurses. I salute and thank all nurses and midwives, whether in the public or private sector, for your commitment to these islands and the years of devotion and caring for our people. Congratulations to you on a well-deserving recognition of this year, dedicated in your honor, and I wish for all of you a long and successful career in this, your chosen profession. I also wish to provide an update on two other important matters today. Firstly, on the musician stipend. The register of interested persons have been finalized with over 200 names. During the course of today, those individuals will be sent a one-page form via email to assist with the process of final vetting and payment. The form can be accessed on the ministry's website, www.ministryofhealth.gov.ky. That's www.ministryofhealth.gov.ky, as well as the hard copy available at the Government Admin Building, staff entrance at the security desk. The ministry is aiming to effect payment on all approved submissions by the end of this month, providing there are no issues with setup of persons in the government payment system, which may delay final payments by a further 2 weeks. We understand these are difficult times, and we sincerely appreciate patience in this regard as we strive to make these payments with urgency. Secondly, as mentioned previously, my ministry is also pursuing a temporary means for assistance with health insurance premiums for qualified persons. By the end of today, an application form and additional information will be available on www.dhrs.gov.ky. That's dhrs.gov.ky, or by hard copy by sending a request to the Health Insurance Commission at hic@gov.ky. Additional locations for collection of the forms will be announced shortly as well. Persons who may not have been able to pay their April health insurance premiums and in need of assistance should respond by May 22nd to the HIC as per details on the application form. I thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much, Mr. Premier McLaughlin.
Donna, I have I have to make a correction. I've been advised by at least 28 people last I checked that I don't have a daughter, but that I have 2 sons.
Yes.
So I just want to make that correction. Slip of the tongue, no fault of the brain.
You have a lot on your head, is what I've been telling people. Like, he's a busy man. You got a lot on your brain.
It is one of my few sources of regret that I don't have a daughter, but I don't have a daughter.
Thank you very much. Okay, so with that, we're going to go straight to members of the media, beginning with Shanda Gallego at Radio Cayman.
Thank you, Donna. Pleasant good afternoon to each and every one of you. I direct this question to Dr. Samuel Williams Rodriguez, if he's available.
He is, yes.
Okay, perfect. Or even our health minister. I know our health minister, Mr. Seymour, you mentioned some time ago that especially during this COVID-19 pandemic, ensuring that chronic medical conditions are managed and under control is a top priority for healthcare providers. And you also mentioned that individuals should be reminded to pick up their prescriptions from the HSA pharmacy at their earliest opportunity. Now, we're seeing a number of establishments or facilities taking up delivery service of prescriptions, i.e. Doctors Express. Just want to know, in regards to HSA, is this something that the HSA has considered or would consider implementing in order to, reduce the traffic flow or make it a little easier for those in need of their prescriptions?
Well, Dr. Williams is on. Dr. Williams, can you address the answer for us?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yeah, the HSA actually have implemented this in the past of delivering medication to persons in need that needed to be their medication. Also, we have implemented another pharmacy at the Smith Road Center for refills. We have system for patients to call in for refills, and we have assigned doctors in the general practice clinic just to prescribe the refill for this patient. We have different approach in order to make that access much better for patients to get their medication. If a patient needs their medication and they cannot come to the hospital for whatever reason, they need to let us know, and we will make sure that the staff of the pharmacy or the general practice department and nurse will take the medication to them.
Okay, so there's actually delivery services that, prescriptions can be delivered right to their door, straight to their door.
For cases for patients that cannot come to the hospital for a particular reason, because they're not able to, we will make arrangement to deliver the medication to them.
Okay, I suffice with that one. Thank you so much.
Shonda, I just want to add to that, that I personally had to assist someone in ensuring that their medications was delivered. Part of what the HSA is doing is delivering the medication at least to the district clinics in each district. And I had that happen this week, which is much closer, and one of their family members or someone else can pick it up. I guess, with the distance, the social distancing and everything else, and actually going and trying to find someone's home and the correct home, etc. They're probably just leaving it at the district clinics.
Okay, and I do know that there is also the drop box, I believe, for the prescriptions that is also available for individuals.
Yes, but most are using the WhatsApp method.
The WhatsApp method, right? Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, Shonda, if that's it for your questions, we're going to go on to Wendy at CNS. Wendy, please go ahead.
Thank you, Donna. I'll try and keep my questions short because it's been a long briefing today. But I just want to check, because of the amount of public interest, whether the Premier did manage to discuss the issue of early learning centres with his caucus yesterday, and whether there's any movement on childcare issues for people next week.
Yes, we did have a bit of a discussion about it, but we've also had advice from Dr. Lee. I think probably next briefing we'll talk about that in more detail. That would be considered a very dangerous move at this stage. The reopening of early learning centers.
Okay, thank you for that. Sorry, I'm a bit disorganized today. I don't know how that's happened. Oh yes, the main government, some of the major government offices that people are starting to ask questions about. Do you have any timelines for things like the passport office opening or the DVDL? Is government still waiting on those kind of things to be down in the next phase? So it wouldn't be in phase 2, it would be in phase 3.
I think I really should have the governor weigh in on this, but we are going to try, I think, to keep as many civil servants out of the building as possible for as long as possible, if what they do can be done from home.
Right.
Or online, or whatever the case may be. But I'll let I think the governor can probably address this better than I can.
I mean, I think the Premier's summed it up exactly correctly, Wendy, and as I said earlier as well, we are trying to keep as many civil servants as home at the moment. Those that can work from home and can operate from home should do so. But so there's no major change in this next phase.
Okay, cool. So wherever possible, if people have concerns about services that they need from government, they should be trying to find out whether they can do most of it online.
Yes.
Okay. And the final thing really is the plan. People just keep saying the economic plan, you know, when will it be made public?
Well, we're still working on it, but I'm hoping early next week we should be able to publish something that people can see what the situation is in terms of what the experts have told us, the economists and so forth, about not just the local situation but the global situation, and then about the measures that the government has taken, because some of these things we've already done, and the measures that we are proposing to take as we go forward. But it's very well advanced.
Okay. That's all I've got. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for those questions, Wendy. We now go to Reshma from the Compass.
Thank you, Donna. My first question goes to the Premier. You announced some good news here that everybody has been waiting to hear. The beaches are going to be open and marine activity is going to start. I had a couple of questions come in regards to diving. Is that going to be part of the consideration as we move into the next phase of unlocking Cayman?
No.
Can you say at what stage we'll get to that point? Are you waiting for the final stage of all clear?
Well, I don't know when we'll get to all clear. It's risk assessment as we go along. We'll need to take advice. I haven't actually asked Dr. Lee specifically for advice about diving, but I would think based on sort of the general principles that we are applying across this, that perhaps by the next, assuming everything goes okay, 2 weeks from Monday next, I would hope.
Okay, great. Thank you. My next question goes to the governor in relation to the UK flight, the arrangements for the Indian and Philippines nationals. Have you moved forward with the talks to implement waivers for the transit visas for these individuals who may be going on these flights? Do you have any update on that you can share with us?
Yes, we have, Reshma. We've had good discussions with UK Border Force, and we believe we have solutions around those issues.
Okay, now we've heard in every briefing the push for testing and for people to come forward. On Monday, you shared with us that you shared with the community that you were also subjected to testing and the results came back negative. It may be helpful if you would be willing to share your experience and maybe what that experience was like and a message for the community, those who may be apprehensive about coming forward to do testing. Would you be willing to do that?
I mean, it was a very quick process, and I do think it is important that people on the front line are tested. And I think John Lee confirmed today that we've had really good response in recent days. So I don't see that as a particular issue now. But yeah, it was a very quick process and over in a flash.
Okay. Now, my next question goes to the Health Minister. You talked about the assistance for health insurance premiums. What is the criteria to access that assistance? Do you have that information readily available?
No. Once you go on the websites that I mentioned earlier, that would be hic@gov.ky. Or the www.dhrs.gov.ky. I have roughly some idea, but I don't want to second guess I don't have it in front of me. It was long discussions with all the stakeholders, and just happy that we were able to get to this point. And something that I think that the caucus would support.
Okay, as you're on the mic, can you provide us with an update on what's happening with negotiations with Cuba to bring their medical personnel here? Are we still considering that as an avenue given our low numbers of COVID-19?
That's a very good question, and given our numbers here in Cayman, the Cuban government has actually been trying to assist other more urgent requests instead. You know, we are most thankful that for where we are in terms of the numbers we're seeing, and are hopeful that this trend will continue, whereby we won't need the additional outside medical assistance. But this dialogue was started, and it's most important that it actually started. So if needed, we can quickly pick up on this. But no urgency at this point, and we're thankful to God for that.
Okay, thank you. I have a quick question for Dr. Lee in relation to plans for those coming back on the repatriation flights. If there are plans to allow those who are coming from Cayman Brac to go to Cayman Brac to isolate, or is it mandatory that everyone has to stay in the government facilities once they get to Grand Cayman?
The people coming back to the Cayman Islands will be required to stay in the government isolation facility on Grand Cayman until they leave it, and part of that leaving process may be to move on to the sister islands.
Okay, and one final question in relation to the isolation. I had a family reach out to me who are on that flight, and they have a 2-month-old baby. They're asking if the baby will have to be tested. What's the policy when it comes to children and testing?
Yes, we've tested a lot of babies. A lot of babies have been tested to date, and we've not had a problem. So we are testing all ages. So yes,
okay,
the baby would need to be tested. The baby would need to be tested, yes.
The baby will be needed?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you for clearing that up.
Okay, thank you, Reshma. Thank you, Dr. Lee. We go finally back to Shanda Gallego from Radio Cayman. Shanda, please go ahead.
Yes. Donna, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. We appreciate our Radio Cayman listeners who daily submit questions and concerns for our daily briefing, and I believe I would direct this one to Premier. Not sure if you're in a position to address this, or if you're able to provide any comments or clarification on this matter. And I would like to caveat this with the knowledge that you did mention it some time ago that opening preschools will be the last on the list. We got a question from a listener saying the majority of children who attend preschools are Caymanian. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to fix this here. Sorry, I'm having a little problem with my computer right now. Yes, the majority of children who attend preschools are Caymanian. For the island to be able to function on an efficient level when schools are able to reopen, it is vital for preschools to still exist. Preschools do not get a grant from government, as is the case with private schools. The question is there any possible funding available from government to assist with a stipend and to pay health insurance for preschool staff to help keep the schools afloat? That's the first question from them.
I'm not aware that there's any current program in place, but it is something we're prepared to look at. We're prepared to look at just about anything, frankly, and decide whether or not it is something that government can and should assist with, because we're very cognizant that these are exceptional times and that it is going to be very difficult for many businesses, particularly small businesses, to survive in the current climate without some assistance.
Agreed. The second question, they're speaking on Early Childhood Assistance Program, ECAP, and that's an agreement between parents and the Ministry of Education to assist parents with fees for their children for the school year. Now, this agreement is budgeted by government, and parents are expected that this is still being paid. Now, they're saying that the last payment received by preschools was March 2020. and they're asking when will schools receive payment for April and subsequent months?
Oh, you're really pressing my knowledge now, aren't you?
I know I am.
The best I can do is to ask about it. I don't have that detailed knowledge.
Got you.
But I will
Thank you
ask.
so much.
I will ask.
Appreciate that. And I do have one question that could go for you or Governor Roper, but are you guys concerned, or should we be concerned with the potential of more panic buying in preparation for the hurricane season 2020?
But I hope not. I think Cayman has demonstrated over the course of the last few months that, and this is not government so much, this is the private sector who deal with this, that they are more than capable of managing the challenges that go along with that, even when there is a significant reduction in overall supply overseas, that they have the necessary contacts and abilities to ensure that Cayman continues to be well supplied with whatever we need. So I wouldn't, and especially since just about everybody has less money available now, I wouldn't invest it in panic buying. In any event, I know I'm tempting fate now, but it is our hurricane season. This part of the Caribbean, Northwest Caribbean, is generally from about the middle of August going through November. So I wouldn't rush to do that now in May.
Okay. Thank you, Premier. I don't know if Governor Roper, you have any comments?
Well, no, I mean, I agree with that. And as we've repeatedly said, there's no reason for anybody to be panic buying at the present time. So I don't have anything more to add than that.
Thank you very much. That's it from me.
Okay, thank you, Shanda. I do have a question, lots of questions, but we'll end with this one. Premier McLaughlin, will all MLAs or elected officials be tested at some point? As I understand, some are being asked to be tested.
Well, I don't have the power to make it mandatory. but obviously, if that's what they want, or if there's a reason to do so, then of course you would expect them to go ahead with it. I'm sure that if NMLAs say, I really need to be tested, that Dr. Lee and his team will make them a priority, and perhaps knock some more needy person out of the line so they get there. But we need to bear that in mind.
You have something to say? Thank you.
Not really on that, but I think most of them, the MLAs that have contacted me, want to be tested. People feel that they've been out there, but most are feeling fine, which is great. I just wanted to mention that the second set of masks has arrived, and I think an email should have been sent out today to all 19 MLAs in all 19 constituencies for them to collect the second set of masks. I think the chief officer, acting chief officer Pucci, was getting that ready from 9 this morning. So for persons who need masks, that mask is going to be the way of life for the next few phases. Whatever we do, it will include face coverings entering public buildings, like supermarkets, pharmacies, etc. And we'll try to do our best to try to furnish as much as we can through this magnitude. There are other methods that are going on with the Red Cross and so forth. I'm personally doing it myself, driving around and trying to hand out. I want to say happy birthday also to May Douglas. Happy birthday, May. Thank you.
Thank you. Any final words? No final words. Okay, so with that, before we go, a reminder from the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Derek Byrne. The following curfew restrictions remain in place until May 15th. So please listen carefully. The soft curfew or shelter in place regulations on Grand Cayman remains in place between 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. That's Monday to Saturday. Of course, we know that the hard curfew or full lockdown is for everyone except essential services personnel personnel here, and that remains in operation here on Grand Cayman as well as on Kim Brack between the hours of 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. nightly, Monday to Sunday. Of course, you know you can exercise up to an hour and a half between 5:15 a.m. and 7 p.m. That's Monday to Saturday. Of course, no exercise is permitted on Sunday during the period of hard lockdown. This relates to Grand Cayman only, as these restrictions have been lifted on the sister islands. A full 24-hour hard curfew as it relates to beach access to public beaches on Grand Cayman, also remains in place until the 15th of May. 5 a.m. This means that no persons from the public should be on the beach at all, walking, swimming, snorkeling, fishing, or engaging in any kind of marine activity. Of course, as you heard earlier, that may be changed in the coming days. The commissioner is also reminding the public that the breach of these curfews could result in you having to pay a fine of up to $3,000 or imprisonment of 1 year or both. A reminder to go online to gov.ky, where you can view the dashboard with the latest coronavirus figures. Also for the FAQ section for answers to your most concerning and pressing questions. We'd like to thank you, the public, as well as our panel for being here with us again today. And of course, we invite you to join us back here again on Friday. For those of you watching via television, we'll leave you now with a look at today's regional and world statistics.